Cybersecurity as a service, the next new thing or the next fad? We'll discuss on today's MSP Zone.
You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
Sometimes you can have something that's a good idea, but you do bad things to it. And I don't know if this is the case here, but I thought it was an interesting story, worthy of talking about. And it certainly started to get me thinking about, okay, is this a real trend or is this something that someone just came up with? And, you know, I got to say, I'm not sure which it is. I have my suspicions, but I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions without me coloring your opinions. The article, it's a press release, I'm pretty sure, that was turned into an article. And it's by I don't know what you call these guys. They're a research firm. I don't know if that means they're not analysts. Says they're a research firm. I'm not familiar with them. I am. They do some stuff, on managed services from time to time. But again, I don't mean to denigrate people's work. I don't also want to legitimize work that doesn't deserve, to be promoted. But I'm simply commenting on what I'm seeing here. And the title is Cybersecurity as a Service Market. And it talks about the growth forecast of revenue for that market through the year 2027. And I don't know who I don't think it says who they surveyed. Although it does represent a few fairly common, well-known vendors and MSPs, and that's the thing, because these are potentially some software vendors, but also some service vendors, and so I'm not sure what the baseline is here, but we'll cross that bridge later. Cybersecurity as a service market. I didn't even know there was a market, but apparently there is a market for cybersecurity as a service. CSAS, is that the acronym? No, they don't say it, but I'll throw it out there. CSAS. They talk about the market of cybersecurity as a service, and they talk about the particular market segments, service verticals being delivered through the cybersecurity as a service market. And I'm just going to read some of them to you because this is actually from the article/press release. Market segments incorporated in the cybersecurity as a service market vertical. Risk and compliance management. Unified Threat Management, UTM, Security Incident Management, Identity and Access Management, Encryption, Intrusion Prevention Systems. What does that sound like to you? I mean, if someone read off that list of services, the first thing that I think of is that's a managed service. That's everything that a common day managed service provider would offer. Every single one of those things. Not one of those things is unusual, or you would be stunned to see within a managed service provider's service portfolio. So that brings me to my next question, which is why call it something different? Now, I know why. Do you guys know why? Why would you take something that, assuming you agree, right, that all of those items are perfectly legitimately managed services? Why would you call it something completely different? Cybersecurity as a service. It doesn't say managed services. But it would lead the casual reader to say, this is an entirely different market. There's an entirely different set of companies selling a completely new type of service line to potentially new customers. And none of those things are true. All of these things exist before cybersecurity as a service was coined. And I don't know if this firm developed that terminology or if they're just running with it and someone else actually came up with it. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. But I think we have to ask the question, does this terminology help us as a profession? And closely related to that is the question of, does this help the consumer better identify providers and the services they could be consuming? And I answer both questions as I don't think it helps at all. I think it muddies the water. I think it confuses people. It confuses me, and I'm pretty informed in managed services. I'm pretty informed about cybersecurity. And if it confuses me, then what's it doing to someone who's just, doesn't work in this industry? They might think that something revolutionary has taken place, when in fact, it hasn't. So let's start, if we can, to define cybersecurity as a service. Because if what's taking place here, we're really starting to chip away and erode significantly at some prior established definitions that I thought were fairly stable. And I'm just going to throw out some random ideas for you guys to think about. And if you think I'm off base, you think I've got it way wrong, I'm not even close to getting this right, I would love to hear from you. Generally, send me a note, send me an email, because I would love to hear your opinion. But I'm going to attempt to define cybersecurity as a service if I was just looking at this press release / article. So the first thing that comes to mind is when you are delivering managed services, one of the big distinctions, at least that I have made over 20 plus years in this industry, is that managed services is different than cloud or application as a service, ASP, or SaaS, software as a service. And the as a service concept or designator doesn't really add much. Remember, the origins of managed services and cloud, or SaaS, came from ASP, application service providers. These were companies that delivered applications on a one-to-many basis in the mid to late 90s. They were the forerunners of cloud. They were the forerunners of SaaS. It wasn't called that. And from the ASP came MSP. That's the sequence. And the gimmick, the fad, if you want to call it that, of including as a service onto something, I get why people would feel the need to do that, because it captures the momentum of a popular business model, right? Makes sense. I don't necessarily begrudge someone from trying to do that, as long as it makes sense, though. As long as it makes sense. And security as a service, if you took that, or cybersecurity as a service, or storage as a service, or IT management as a service, does the as a service add anything that you didn't already know? In my opinion, absolutely not. I don't think it would add any appreciable benefit to the listener to understand, oh, you didn't just mean regular IT management, you mean IT management as a service. Oh, well, that changes everything. Why didn't you say so? You're not just talking about cybersecurity, you're talking about cybersecurity as a service. What the hell does that mean? Are you not delivering a service if you're just delivering cybersecurity? No. Are you just selling software if you're not delivering software as a service? That's a little bit more questionable, but I think you get where I'm going here. Cybersecurity versus cybersecurity as a service, as defined by all of these service segments that they list, these are all managed services, managed IT services. Now, I know some groups out there, some people, like IT as a service. I personally, I think it's dumb. I don't understand it, and I'll explain why. The term managed services used to be, not that long ago, a very rarely used term outside of the IT channel. It was not popularly discussed. It was, you'd have to be in the industry to know the term managed services. And we struggled and fought as an industry for a long time to get to the point where managed services actually meant something. And today, I think we can absolutely say, today managed services means a lot to a lot of people. It has some pretty definable definitions to people out there. They understand what it means. You don't have to go, you could say managed services and they'll say, oh, I kind of get it. I get it. Just like with cloud. I get the cloud. Even if they're not in technology, they get it. As a concept, as a macro concept, they get it. But what does as a service get you when you're defining an already existing term? Does it help the average MSP to say, I deliver cybersecurity as a service? All right, well, what were you doing before you did that? Were you not secure? Were you not delivering security? For those MSPs who choose not to leverage the cybersecurity as a service moniker, do they lose out? You see where I'm going with this, right, folks? Does a term help or harm you? If words have anything, any purpose at all, it's to convey meaning, it's to clarify, it's to explain, it's to communicate. Does the addition of cybersecurity as a service, as a concept, as a categorization of IT help us or harm us? I don't know. I just don't know. Does it differ from managed services? Does cybersecurity as a service differ from managed services? Just based off of this article alone, I would say no, absolutely not. There are MSPs that I've seen doing all of these items, all of these individual service lines for many years. It's not different at all. What has happened, though, I think, is by taking a commonly held definition and then changing the word that is used to define it, can have some significant harm in the industry if you start to have people who wonder or question those that use the alternative. Which ultimately leads us to the question of who is behind this. Well, I'm just going to go out there and say it. I think it's the analysts. Now, I don't know if it's the major, I don't think it's the Gartners and the IDCs and the Forresters. I mean, they tend to stay pretty straight-laced and commonsensical when it comes to new naming conventions. I mean, they really do put a lot of thought into how they categorize major segments. But this is just, I think, a construct of a researcher. I don't even know if they're an analyst firm. I don't know what they do. I mean, I think they're just trying to sell a research report by dressing up what otherwise would be called a managed services report as a cybersecurity as a service report. But here's a heads up for those of you out there who are thinking about shelling out whatever this thing costs. And I'm not talking about this article, because there's others like it. This is managed services called by a different name. I'll repeat it. Cybersecurity as a service is managed services called by a different name. And if you think that you're going to get to greater levels of understanding, if you're going to segment the market better under this category, when at least more than half of the global population, uses a very different set of terms to define this, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some real problems. Because this doesn't make it easier to define our industry. This doesn't make it easier to segment the marketplace. This doesn't make it easier to forecast revenue. This kicks up dust, muddies the water, makes things more oblique and opaque, not more transparent, in my opinion. But hey, are you an MSP that's using cybersecurity as a service? Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe you think this is actually a good thing. Maybe the fact that you use this new term has actually helped sell more services. If that's the case, let me know. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. But, just reading this thing, it screams confusion to me. It screams calling something that we used to know by another term by a completely different term. And I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. But what do I know? Give us your thoughts. Send us your comments. You think I'm wrong? You think I'm missing the mark on this? Please, come on, tell me. Give me some of your wisdom, some of your thoughts and comments. And I'm serious. I love hearing from you guys because you guys have some great insights. Take a look at this article. Maybe you come to a completely different conclusion than I did. but I would love to hear from you nonetheless. mspzone@msballiance.com. That's the email. And I don't know. I think this is worth reading, at least so you understand what your potential customers are being exposed to. And if anything, even if you agree with me or disagree with me, you should know about it because, chances are a customer or two might actually pick this up and say, do you do this? And I would hate for any MSP that does do this to say, well, I'm not a cybersecurity as a service provider, when in fact, according to how they define this, you absolutely are. You just don't call yourself that. Anyway, food for thought. Until next time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.